Have you ever been through this? I mean, really, truly hurt by someone, and then they just act like nothing happened? They betray you, they wound you, and then they just move on. It can make you feel like you're losing your mind. Well, according to the psychologist Carl Jung, their bizarre behavior isn't really about you at all. It's about a terrifying internal battle that they are losing badly. So, in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into the psychology behind why they do this and, more importantly, how you can rise from it.
Ooh, this one hits hard, doesn't it? Because for so many of us, it's not just a quote, it's our reality. Someone who was once your entire world suddenly treats you like a complete stranger. And that indifference, it's a special kind of pain. It invalidates everything, leaving you to hold all the grief while they just seem to hold none.
So, that's the million-dollar question, right? Why? How can they just act like nothing happened? It's not always simple cruelty or malice, though it definitely feels that way. The real answer is often buried deep, deep inside their own psyche. It's a powerful set of defense mechanisms that are working overtime to protect them from a truth they simply can't handle. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to explore this psychological fortress they've built, this house of mirrors their mind uses to shield itself from the reality of what they did to you. First, we have to understand the ego. Think of the ego as the main character in their life story. Its number one job, above all else, is to make sure that character is always seen as the hero, good, moral, rational. So when their actions totally contradict that heroic story, like, say, hurting someone they claim to care about, the ego completely freaks out. It treats that contradiction as a life-or-death crisis. And to survive this crisis, the ego deploys its special forces, defense mechanisms. Now, these aren't conscious lies. They're automatic, unconscious survival tactics. Denial just straight up erases the event from their reality. Rationalization spins a whole new story where they were totally justified. You made me do it. Minimizing shrinks the harm down to nothing. It wasn't even that bad. And the classic blame shifting makes you the problem, calling you too sensitive, all to preserve their own sense of innocence.
Jung also talked about the persona. This is the social mask we all wear for the world. The person who hurt you is deeply, deeply attached to their mask of being a good person or a loyal friend. When their actions completely shatter that image, they have a choice: face the ugly truth or protect the mask at all costs. And you guessed it, most of the time they choose the mask, just acting as if nothing is wrong to hold that fragile identity together. But here's the thing. This denial has a huge cost. Jung famously said, "What you resist persists." All that buried guilt and shame doesn't just vanish. Nope, it festers. It seeps out as anxiety, as rage, as depression. They become possessed by the very thing they deny. And this brings us to something Jung called the shadow. All right, so beneath all those ego defenses, there's a much darker, much more powerful force at play. This is the part of them that's really responsible for the pain they caused.
So, what is the shadow? The shadow is basically the psychic basement where we shove everything we don't like about ourselves. All our rage, our envy, our cruelty, our deepest fears. We're all taught from a young age that these parts are unacceptable, so we bury them deep in our unconscious mind. But they don't just disappear. The shadow is always there, influencing our behavior from the dark, just waiting to be triggered.
This is one of Jung's most profound quotes. He warned that if we don't bring this unconscious stuff into the light, it runs the whole show. The person who hurt you, they're likely not acting from a place of conscious choice. They're being directed by this hidden, wounded part of themselves. They cause all this harm, and then they call it fate, or worse, they call it your fault, completely unaware of the inner script that's controlling their life.
This really shows you that internal split, doesn't it? On the surface, you've got the charming persona that you probably fell for. But underneath, the shadow is just churning with all their unprocessed trauma and rage. And this creates a deeply fragmented person, one who can be loving one moment and unbelievably cruel the next.
So how does this shadow cause so much damage? Well, its main weapon is projection. They will literally accuse you of the exact flaws they can't stand in themselves. You, my friend, become a living, breathing mirror reflecting all their unhealed wounds right back at them. And instead of looking at their own reflection, they smash the mirror. They smash you.
Now, we're going to gently turn the focus inward for a moment. And let me be clear, this is not about blame, not at all. This is about empowerment. It's about understanding why we, you and I, might be drawn to these painful dynamics in the first place.
Think about it. If you find yourself in these situations over and over again, Different faces, but the same gut-wrenching pain, that's not a coincidence. That feeling of painful familiarity is actually a clue from your psyche. It's pointing to something deep within you that is begging to be healed.
There's a name for this. It's called repetition compulsion. And here's the wild part. Our unconscious mind isn't seeking pain because it's masochistic. It's desperately trying to heal. It finds people who feel familiar to our earliest wounds, from childhood usually, hoping that this time we can finally fix it. This time we can get the love we were denied. It's a healing strategy that until we make it conscious is tragically doomed to fail every single time.
So here's how that cycle works, step by step. An old wound from your past is crying out for resolution. So your unconscious mind, like a heat-seeking missile, is drawn to people who trigger that exact same wound because it feels familiar, home almost. And we hope with all our hearts that we can get a different outcome this time. But the pattern just repeats and repeats and repeats until we finally see it for what it is, an echo of the past playing out in the present.
And there are other hooks too. Sometimes we're drawn to their shadow because they express all the wildness we've repressed in ourselves. We can mistake the chaos of trauma bonding for intense passion. We might try to save them to avoid dealing with our own pain. Or, and this is a big one, we have weak boundaries that unconsciously signal to the world that our needs don't matter.
Okay, understanding all of that is the first huge step, but now we shift from diagnosis to healing. We shift from understanding their brokenness to reclaiming your wholeness. It's time to turn this pain into power. When we're hurt, our ego screams for revenge. It wants to make them pay. It wants to prove our worth to them. But our soul, our deeper self, seeks something else entirely. It seeks resolution. The goal isn't to make them pay. It's to understand their pain so we can finally release our own. The focus has to shift from proving your worth to them to reclaiming your energy for you. That, right there, is where the real healing begins.
And the very first act of reclaiming your energy is setting boundaries. Listen, boundaries are not walls to punish other people. They are containers of self-worth. A boundary is a sacred declaration to yourself and to the world that your peace is non-negotiable. For so many of us, this is the hardest but also the most important work we will ever do.
Now, authentic forgiveness isn't a one-time thing. It's a journey. It starts with defending yourself, getting distance. It means honoring your anger as a valid signal that you were devalued. Then, you move to understanding, not excusing their behavior. And finally, you forgive, not for them, but to free yourself. And please, remember this critical point. Forgiveness does not require reconnection. That is a privilege they have to earn back.
This quote, often attributed to Rumi, completely reframes this entire experience. The pain you went through was not meaningless. That betrayal, that dismissal, it broke you open. It shattered the illusions that were keeping you from your most authentic self. The wound is not a mark of shame, it is a portal.
So the final question is no longer about them. It's all about you now. This wound has opened you, so how will you let the light in? How will you use this experience to become wise instead of bitter, whole instead of broken? Your healing is the closure they can never, ever take from you. It is your power, and it begins right now.